Hi, today I will be presenting about my lesson plan called Emotions at Ellis Island. This lesson will of course depend on the teacher's pace and the student's pace as well and interaction. I timed this to be about an hour and I'm just going to kind of give you an overview about what my lesson is and how I'd execute it. So here's the SOL. The main focus is the student will demonstrate knowledge of how the nation grew and changed from the end of Reconstruction by talking about new immigration. So this is the SOL. It's for 8th grade. The main goal of, and you'll see this in my lesson plan, but the main goal of this lesson is to give a different perspective about Ellis Island. Students mostly just learn about the process. I don't know, at least from my experience, I don't really get to like process or look at more deeper into the emotions of the immigrants or what they're going through at the time, and more of like a in the time period type deal. So I kind of wanted to explore that today. So here's the hook. I would have the students sit down, and this will change based off the teacher. This is just an example. But knowing my students, I would come up with a situation that I know they'd have differing opinions on. This is just an example. I would put maybe up there a situation of working in a group project and not getting along with your partners. This is assuming that some students would just do the work, some students would report their partners. Like, these are just examples. I would have students raise their hands, give their opinion on this different issue, and then point out to them that it was the same issue. They have that in common, however, they have different emotions about it. And bring up that today we're going to explore that a little bit. Then I would bring up Ellis Island as write that on the board, and I would have students raise their hand, and I'd have them do a quick write by having a few students come up and write some things that they know about Ellis Island on the board, some fast facts, some ideas, everything like that, and tell them that today we're going to explore Ellis Island in a deeper meaning and kind of review some of the facts with them. As an introduction, they would watch this short 4.5 minute video from the History Channel. It's linked in my lesson plan. It kind of just gives an overview of what immigrants experienced when they came to Ellis Island, the process they had to go through, what they dealt with, everything like that, and gives like an overall execution of kind of what immigrants were met with when they came to Ellis Island. So it's kind of like a hook. And then I decided to use art strategies for this lesson as well. I would practice I would model, I wouldn't just teach about it, I would model the 2 poem strategy with the students. I would preference them and let them know that today we're going to look at 2 poems about Ellis Island, and we're going to, decode them by looking through it through a different lens through the 2 poem strategy together. And I would pull up this this example. This example was actually given to us in the 50 Strategies book, and it was the best one I could find that I really liked. And I would say that we were going to go ahead and do our note-taking skills together and practice modeling a little bit, and we would underline the similarities in the poem and also circle or highlight the differences in the poem, because we would go into detail about 2 poems reflect a common aspect but differing opinions or different views on a common aspect, and this one would be being a bee versus being a worker and queen. This is an example I would show them, and this is like the product of what we'd have. The stars in this instance are things that are similar, and the exclamation points are things that are different. I would model this with the students by having them raise their hand and tell me what they think is alike, or just commenting. Since they're in 8th grade, if we have good group discussion skills, we would just comment and everything like that. And this would be happening on the smartboard, so they'd see me actively doing it. I would then give them another example of a found poem. Sorry, not found poem. That's another strategy I did. The 2 poem strategy. And that would be Batman and Joker. I thought this was relevant. It's more up with the times. And once again, we would, instead of like actively doing it, we would just talk about what's similar and what's different and the common denominator between it. And then I would let them know that today they're going to create their own 2 poem. So I would introduce the poems to them. They're given 2 poems that they're going to have to compare and contrast, and then they're expected to create their own 2 poems, which would look something like this, but in the version of Ellis Island. So I have here the New Colossus, which is a perspective not from a direct immigrant from Ellis Island, but this is the writing that's on the Statue of Liberty, and kind of gives a perspective of the excitement of, the Statue of Liberty and coming to the new world and everything like that. And my second one is an account from Ellis Island from September 1907, which talks about the perspective of an Eastern European Jewish person who came to Ellis Island, and her experience there with her name and everything like that. So I would read over these with them if needed, or I would just print them out and give them to each student and give them, prompt them to go ahead and do this process where they would go ahead and circle or star or anything, the contrast, compare. If they want to do a Venn diagram graphic organizer, I would encourage them to do that. I like variety. As long as they get the concept done, I don't care how they execute it, as long as it's executed and they see the compare and contrast. And then they would create their own. Looking at those, they would come up with a common theme, and then they would come up with the differences in between both of them. And obviously, like, these can be changed for any historical event. If there's poems about it or accounts or something like that, they could just look at accounts too and create a 2-poem strategy together and everything like that. And if there was time, this was extra, but kind of going on the beyond reading questions that we kind of talked about in class. This is a question I came up with, and after reading these poems, and of course like creating their own poems, what other emotions do you think immigrants were feeling when arriving on Ellis Island? Just to kind of get them to think beyond what we just learned, like thinking in the historical the context of the times and everything like that. Thank you very much.